I'll definitely watch it though. It's one of those things
I'll watch
you
it for
have
sure.
to watch.
Oh, fuck yeah. I watched a new movie with...
Next.
So John Jones has been... he's been talking about returning for what seems like years and years, and it has been years and years. It's been about 3 years since he's been in the bulking phase, which seems to be go to the gym, do weights, release some footage of hitting pads, then some, body cam footage release of you assaulting a police officer. It's that pattern, right?
Yeah.
Apparently we're at the stage now where we're looking at a serious John Jones return for November. I'd heard it was going to be Stipe, but we're now hearing rumours floating around that it might be Francis Ngannou. The heavyweight division is quite an interesting division at the moment. First of all, what are your thoughts on John Jones's return, and do you think that has he done enough basically to prepare himself for heavyweight, and do you think it's going to translate over? And I'll let you finish, but I
haven't started yet.
I'll let you start. But my initial, thinking is he was starting to struggle with light heavyweights at the end of his light heavyweight career. Split decision against Thiago Santos, the questionable decision against Dominic Reyes. These guys are much smaller men. When that's starting to happen, does it mean that you are cutting too much weight and that you're going to do a lot better at heavyweight, or does it mean that you're going to be susceptible to getting knocked out by huge heavyweights? It could go either way, right?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, he's still an athlete. So
definitely.
All the Jones brothers coming from that family as well. It's probably not a huge, thing for him to go up to heavyweight and be able to maintain that and translate that across. But also at the same time, he's been out for 3 years. So does he, ring rust does that become a factor? Francis Ngannou is probably the scariest person I've ever seen in the UFC.
And he can apparently now wrestle, so...
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know, to say that John Jones is more technical, what you've been seeing of him over the past 3 years is literally him getting bulky and doing weights. So has he become more powerful but maybe a bit slower? He definitely would have become a little bit slower if he's bulked up that much as well. So I don't think going up a weight class is ever a great decision, to be completely honest, just because of that huge factor. If you can make 205, and he was like the best 205 of all time when he was in there, why wouldn't he want to try and maintain that? And maybe he could get that GOAT status, but he's taking a massive risk of going up to heavyweight. Yeah,
but I think that's the thing is he was starting to get to the point where he wasn't as dominant as he was previously, and that's to your point, if you're not as dominant as you were previously in light heavyweight, moving up to heavyweight is what's the skill difference there? A lot of people say that they're less technical up at heavyweight, so maybe that's his thinking. Maybe I'll go up to this upper weight division, be a bit faster, be a bit more technical against these guys, but it could backfire because they're also more powerful.
Yeah, but I don't know. But then you see someone like Cyril Gane, for example, who's so athletic and so technical in the way that he fights. How does that translate when he comes across to somebody like John Jones, who was very technical and very, agile, quite athletic as well? So someone like Francis Ngannou, who just throws bombs and his hands are the size of my head, and that's saying something. It's a risk, man. I just think that's the main thing I'm thinking about is that it's a big risk.
Yeah, I'd also like to, I don't know what happened. I know there's rumours, but I think the Stipe versus John Jones fight is one that would be a great fight for the fans. I think they're both stylistically, Stipe's a smaller heavyweight, and he's got, great hands and great takedowns. I think they have a similar style. That'd be a quite interesting fight. I think him versus Ngannou would be kind of the bull versus the matador scenario, whereas him versus Stipe would probably be a bit more of a technical stand-up and wrestling fight.
I also don't think John Jones deserves a title shot straight off the bat.
Francis is still the champion, right? But he's injured. Because is the Cyril Gane and Tai Tuivasa fight for an interim belt? Because I believe it might be.
It might be, yeah.
Right, okay. So where's Stipe and where does Kevin Lee fit into all this? most importantly of all.
I think I would like to see Stipe because he sort of had... No one's heard about Stipe for a while since he sort of lost. Right?
Died.
So he's probably ranked, number 3?
Yeah.
So I think it's fair for John Jones to get a top 5 because, he was champion for quite a long time at a different weight class. But going up a weight class, you can't just be like, oh, here, have a title shot, unless you're going for a double champion type situation.
But he is arguably the greatest of all time. So where else do you place him, Can't really give people tune-up fights at that level.
Yeah, but top 5's not really, or top 3 even, isn't really a tune-up fight.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I just hope that we actually see him back because, it's been, as I said, 3 years that we've been talking about this.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
And what's the bet that, a week before this happens, a week before this happens, he'll, pimp slap a stripper on Hollywood Boulevard or
something absolutely ridiculous.
It's like Dana said, he actually said you can't even let Jones stay in Vegas for more than 24 hours. They'd actually have to fly him in and then fly him straight out because if he was there for more than 24 hours, he couldn't even be trusted there for more than 24 hours.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
When he was there for his inauguration into the UFC Hall of Fame, that was when he assaulted his wife and went insane because he was there for more than 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Relax. You're all right. Relax. You have anything in your pockets, man?
What did I do?
It's okay.
What did I do? You fucking cracker! I'm fucking officers. I fucking hate you. I hate you.
He actually headbutted a police car, but I mean, look, let's just hope that there's no picograms or anything happening before. Because it'd be good to see. I think it'd just be interesting to see. And certainly, you forget that he's only 34, 35, something like that.
That could actually be a good wager on like one of those novelty bets. Will John Jones fuck up before the fight?
I know. Exactly. Or pop test positive or something.
Yeah.
How the angles looking, Harry, all right?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, sweet. All right, next one.
Should interim belts be silver? This is one of those annoying things where I've been saying this for fucking ages, and I feel like now that it's being brought up, it sounds like I haven't been saying it. That I'm saying that I've been saying it because it's happening.
I haven't heard you say it once.
Maybe I just thought it. I should have said it. But obviously, yes, it's very confusing when you have 2 gold belts. Makes no sense. Silver is obviously, the second prize before gold. Makes complete sense. Would be simple. If you remember, the BMF belt was silver, which is, in my opinion, still the most absurd thing the UFC has ever done. Also, how Kamaru Usman is not the BMF after knocking out the BMF cold. Because that was the other thing. I remember when Masvidal won the BMF belt, he said it was selected to him when he would go into a fight whether or not the BMF was up for, when he fought Kamaru for the belt, he's like, well, the BMF's not up for it's not on the plate though. It's just, he can't, it's like, you can't win a belt that then you don't get to become champion, right? And then say, oh, well, when I fight you the championship belt's not up for.
Yeah, it's not like boxing where they're all different organizations and they get the belts from like WBC and WBFF and whatever, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same organization. They've just made this ridiculous belt. And I don't want to talk about the BMF.
The BMF
belt. It's so stupid.
It's absurd.
It's like the worst belt ever made.
Well, The Rock gave it out as well, which was great. I mean, that whole thing, that was a very interesting period for the UFC. But so, I mean, my point is, if they can make that silver, they can make interim belt silver. I think it'd be more, it'd be less confusing, right? And it'll just look better. It makes more sense, right? Silver belts.
Or on the flip side of that, do you even have an interim title? The person that wins is the next in line for the shot. Like,
I think.
Do you need to solidify it with a belt?
I mean, there's probably an argument for that in boxing as well, but I think there's probably that need when someone's out of action, you need to kind of solidify it somehow. Although it always gets confusing though, because people say, I'm world champion now, but it's like you're interim world champion. It's not really world champion. But I kind of agree with you on that. But I think if we're going to have them, then silver makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. To me, it's just whatever. It doesn't, no, I'm good. Got to drive later.
Are you driving?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it really matters either way what it is. Make it gold, silver, whatever.
But if we're going to have it, let's have it silver.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
It's a shame that you think I haven't said it before because I feel like I've said it Just singing it from the rooftops for years.
Yeah, I just wasn't.
Silver belts. Make them silver. So we've got a beautiful new 26-inch LED 4K display ready to show us what we need to know. Huge letters saying Khamzat versus Diaz, which leads me to believe that we're going to talk about Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz, which has been announced officially, of course.
Sorry, I got to cut in then because if the way you've spelt it, if you take out the K, it says hazmat, which I kind of find a little bit funny. But anyway, go on.
These are your notes. So
Did you copy and paste it?
yeah,
That's even more.
good on you.
That's even more
So,
embarrassing for me now.
This has been in the. I mean, we've heard whispers of this for a little while, and I always thought it was a bit of an outrageous fight to make, and I was, it's one of those ones that you want to see, but you also don't want to see because, I mean, and let's be real, I could be wrong here, but I feel like it's essentially going to be a public execution, and I think that for Nate Diaz, I guess the narrative that's out there at the moment is that Nate was talking shit about the UFC. His contract was about to end. He was saying, "Release me. No one gives me any fights." Basically bad mouthing Dana, and they've said, "Oh, you want to fight? Well, you can take this guy, right?" And
Yeah.
Nate being Nate, he's taken the fight. I could be wrong, but I just feel like it's a terrible mismatch. What are your takes on this fight?
Yeah, I just don't think Diaz should be fighting anymore, really. I think he said he's got one more fight on the contract, though. So, I mean, whatever fight it's going to be, why not make it a massive main event?
That's true, but why not give it... I mean, that's... I guess one way of looking at it is, and I don't know what his pay-per-view share deal, like revenue deal is, but one way of looking at it is, yeah, make a massive fight, make a lot of money, a lot of pay-per-views, sure, but also wouldn't you rather give him, and I guess he actually just recently retired, but, the likes of a Cowboy Cerrone or someone that he can actually go out and have a competitive fight with and, end his career on a high because, look, and I could be wrong and it would be one of the greatest upsets in history if he was to pull it off. But
yeah.
I don't see the jiu-jitsu having much of an effect against someone who's such a top-heavy wrestler like Chimaev is. It kind of negates that kind of, I guess, that jiu-jitsu that Diaz has. He has a good guard, but I think when you're being controlled in that kind of, Dagestani, Chechnyan wrestling style, it's very difficult to actually utilize any of your jiu-jitsu. I think his jiu-jitsu will be nullified. I think he might be able to make a bit of an impact in the stand-up if they were to keep it standing. However, after Chimaev's last fight where he got caught in a bit of a firefight, I'm assuming he won't keep it standing. And if he did, it would be very stupid because that's Diaz's only path to victory, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I think also in a nutshell that if you dial all that back and just look at the bigger picture and probably what UFC is looking at as well, Diaz is the one that builds all these big, sort of cards like Conor.
Of course.
Like Conor, like the fights he had back to back with Conor as well. It's a money-making event for them. Diaz pulls the crowd. He has the big numbers. He's going to get massive, money through the gate sales as well.
Yeah.
So that's probably generally what they're looking at with someone who's what's he ranked now? Number 2?
Chimaev,
yeah.
I believe number 2, yeah.
So,
which is also kind of, I mean, flip side of the coin, it's a huge risk for Chimaev to be taking because if he was to lose that fight, straight down the rankings and also hype train completely derailed, I guess he just wants the name and kind of, he probably thinks the same way I do, which is that it'll be a dominant performance by him. But I think it's quite a big risk to take.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Diaz is past where he used to be as well. Like he's well over the hump.
I think Chimaev's not thinking of it as a risk, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think Diaz might even just be doing it for the money. Who knows? Like it's a weird fight to take, like you say.
But that's what I'm saying. It's a weird fight to take. And if it is for the money, why take a fight that is so dangerous for your last fight?
Yeah, but who else could he take that would be interesting? Like,
I mean,
like the up and coming young.
That's true.
Hype train that hasn't been derailed yet, even though the Gilbert Burns fight was a little bit closer than everyone thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, the Conor fight's always there. However, obviously Conor's not necessarily in action right now, but I do wonder if that's still in the pipeline at all. Like does this mean that's just out the window? Because I think that trilogy that trilogy rather is potentially could be the biggest fight in UFC history.
Yeah, and that would actually be a good fight because they're both well past their prime. So
Well, exactly, and that's what I mean. I think that would make more sense. However, I guess that option's on the table. Look, we'll see how that plays out. I just initial gut instinct is that it'll be a complete walkthrough and he'll get ragdolled and completely destroyed and take a lot of damage, which he tends to in every fight anyway. But I mean, it's a sad way to see someone who's given so much to the company go out. But hey, maybe he asked for it. We don't know the ins and outs. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he just said, "Give me the hardest fight. I want to make a statement." Who knows? But official prediction would be thumbs up by public execution. What's your prediction for that?
He'll either finish him, I don't know, maybe second and third round, or it'll be like a 50-43 sort of type situation where he has like a few 10-8 rounds. And he does, like, Diaz does have the ability to take a lot of damage, but he's also got that scar tissue that makes it look like he gets hit a lot more than he probably actually does because he's been hit that many times in the past.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think that might happen. It's hard to say what Nate Diaz you get on the night as well.
That's true. I guess time will tell, but to me it seems like an insane mismatch, but we'll see what happens.
We have to talk about Volk at least once every episode, right?
Of course, yeah, national treasure.
Yeah. So he's hoping Oliveira wins UFC 280, as he reckons it's going to be a far bigger fight for him.
Right.
Well, what do you think? I mean, we've got written here, should Volk move up and go for a second?
I think
it's definitely what he's going for.
That's the first question, right? I think Oliveira is such a polarizing figure because he takes so much damage and has this kind of ability to come back and win, which makes him so exciting.
Yeah.
Makhachev is much more dominant and Khabib-like in the sense that he just tends to overwhelm his opponents, not get touched. That's not as kind of exciting to watch. So I think he's right in the sense that Oliveira would be a bigger fight, probably a better fight for him because Oliveira does tend to get touched up and Volk has a lot of power in his hands and could probably touch him up early and maybe put him out. I think Volk versus Makhachev seems insane to me, but
that's a really bad fight with Volk, and that's probably why he wants Oliveira to win, because he'd just get dominated for 5 rounds.
Yeah, should he actually be going up a weight class? That's the question. My thinking is, look, I'd love to see him go up and get another belt and just really solidify that GOAT status that I think he deserves. However, he's quite small for featherweight. Yeah, look at Ortega, right? Ortega looks huge against him, and these guys are much bigger than that even. Look, if anything, I think he goes down a weight class. I think that would make more sense. He's trained with Peter Yan before. I think he could go down to 35 and make a claim for the belt there. I know it's not quite as exciting as moving up.
But also on the flip side of that, he's always used to fighting people taller than him, so maybe that could be an advantage.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, he does well against people that are taller than him. You look at, Holloway's got that reach advantage, and he managed to just essentially tee off on his head for 5 rounds straight. So he's quite explosive. He sort of bounces around, and he knows how to use his range to his advantage. Even though he is small, he jumps in and out of the pocket. He's incredibly explosive. And for 5 rounds, he's got that championship experience. I'm not putting it past him to go up to lightweight and win a belt. However, as a massive Volk fan, I just get a bit nervous for him, thinking about him going up against some of those guys,
Mind you, with someone like Oliveira, who has been known to miss weight in the past, obviously, that could be an advantage for him as well, and not having to cut so much weight to get to 145 as well. When these guys, they struggled to get to 155, and because they can't get lower than that, right?
Exactly.
That's their cutoff. So maybe he can have more energy as well, even with that championship experience on top of that.
I mean, an interesting question, as well is Oliveira versus Makhachev. I mean, that's in itself, before we even talk about Volk coming into the picture. What's your take on that? Who do you think gets that done?
Makhachev is, I think he's got a really good chance of winning that, to be honest. I'm an Oliveira fan, though. I mean, not that I'm not a Makhachev fan, but I just think it's hard to say how this one goes because it could be, and it's for an open belt as well. No one's champion.
Yeah, I mean, Oliveira should be probably, but he's not.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think Makhachev could win by ragdoll 5 rounds.
Yeah, I think it's that old thing like we said with Hamzat where it's like that Dagestani style wrestling is so dominant, and when you sort of, I guess, put it up against Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, although Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is obviously very effective, it's kind of they mix that into that style, right? Into Sambo. Combat Sambo has submissions, has grappling. It just seems to negate it a lot of the time. Like it does. I know that Oliveira's tricky. I know that he's got good submissions off his back, but I just feel like these Dagestani wrestlers are so good in every position, and they know their next move. They're just so good at controlling someone on the ground.
Yeah, they're complete fighters.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very good in every.
I just don't know if Oliveira's even going to be able to get anything off. However, having said that, I wouldn't be shocked if he was able to pull something off. I also think he, hot take, but I think he probably has better stand up than Makhachev.
Oh yeah.
I know he gets like bored, like pretty much knocked out twice before he actually gets going. But once he gets going, his Muay Thai is actually very good, very good.
And Makhachev has to also be careful with his takedowns unless he secures, that sort of like leg triangle, Dagestani style sort of takedowns and stuff like that. If he makes one mistake, Oliveira could get a sub off his back because he's very good off his back as well.
Exactly. Just another exciting fight. I mean, I'd struggle to pick that, but if I was a betting man, which I certainly am, not a winning man, but a betting man, I would be putting my money on Makhachev in that one, I think.
I think so too.
And then having said that, I think Makhachev versus Volk, look, if Volk could win that fight, that would be unbelievable, but that's a fight I don't really want to see.
Yeah.
That's not... although, he'd move up, he'd still be the champion if he lost. What does he really have to lose, I guess? He's got phenomenal submission defense.
It does show how hard it is, though, when you've got someone like Izzy going up to fight Jan and didn't even look like he was in that fight at any stage.
He also didn't get hurt, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's not forget that.
Exactly.
If Volk can go up and have a kind of competitive fight, get taken down, maybe submitted, whatever, but not get knocked out cold, it'll kind of be like, oh, well, he gave it a go.
Yeah.
But if he goes up and gets, put in a mounted crucifix and elbowed till he's unconscious, that'll be obviously not great to see. If Izzy got knocked out cold, it would have been a different story. I think it depends how the fight ends, right?
Definitely.
We'll have to see, but I think I think Volk already deserves to be pound for pound number one, but this will definitely propel him.
Also, you'll know if Oliveira gets almost knocked out in the first round and who's going to win.
That's true.
That's true, because if he gets knocked out in the first round, he's going to win.
Yeah. Not knocked out, but
on his back like a cockroach.
Yeah.
Doing that. He always does that.
Gasping for air.
No, but he's like, come into my guard. It's like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
He's like, come into my guard. I'm not unconscious.
Yeah.
I can't see you. Come closer.
Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley is another fight that's been announced.
Also love to see that.
Yeah, it's a great fight. I mean, O'Malley obviously was, heading towards that when Peter Yan was still the champion. That would have been his, obviously championship fight. It's interesting now because we get to see the fight at 3 rounds, not at 5.
Yeah.
Which I think favours O'Malley because he breaks every bone in his body in every single fight.
Yeah.
I think 5 rounds against someone like Peter Yan would be a grueling fight for O'Malley.
Yep.
I think 3 rounds though, look, we didn't get to see too much in his last fight, obviously, with the eye poke. It was stopped early. It's debatable as to how he was going. I think he was probably just kind of getting going. I don't think we got to see a lot of what he had in that fight. But I think striking-wise, he is pretty dynamic and pretty unpredictable. So, I don't know. I think Yan is a lot physically stronger and just seems more, O'Malley's gangly and unpredictable, but not very, he doesn't seem very solid. I don't know. It's a weird fight, right? It's like the concrete Russian versus like the gangly, like weird stoner clown.
Yeah.
It's my official
I don't know.
take.
I think it's a big step up for
It's a big
O'Malley.
step up, huge step up. Especially considering his last fight didn't even get out of, 1 round before it was stopped.
It is also nice to see that he's not taking just,
Good on him, yeah.
just random names like he has been in the past. Also, just quick note on Sean O'Malley. Did you see after his last fight, did you see Henry Cejudo?
No. Oh,
So-
when he was being interviewed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, Cejudo just called him out. He's like, I wasn't impressed by your fight at all. You want a real fight? Come here. And Sean just looked really confused, as you would.
As you would. I mean, I mean, it's confusing because Cejudo...
What's even there?
He's not even in the UFC. What weight division does he even fight in? Like, It's so weird, just calling out random people.
Who calls himself out like that?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
What? It's Triple C, mate. Come on.
He is Triple C.
Someone else's fight.
To your point, I agree with you. I think props to O'Malley for taking a tough fight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, definitely.
It'll be a big test. If he can get through Jan, I think it'll obviously be very impressive. I think Jan's got something to prove after his last loss, which was a close call, and I think it's one of those situations where you're getting someone like Jan who's so dominant, so imposing, has so much forward pressure. You don't really want to get someone like that off a close loss because it's like you're getting a motivated version of them when they've got something to prove. Like, I don't know if I'd want to be fighting Petr Yan right now because he didn't look bad in his last fight. He just kind of didn't look himself.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to fight him right now either.
I think
That's more so because I'm out of shape.
I wouldn't want to fight him ever, but I'm saying right now, I feel like it's the worst time to be fighting someone like Petr Yan. I think he's got something to prove.
Yeah.
Look, big step up for O'Malley. If he gets this done, it'll be very impressive.
And he'll have a huge height and reach advantage as well.
True. So fights to make following UFC 277. Obviously, that was a couple of weeks ago now.
Yeah.
Derek Lewis, somewhat controversial loss. I think
I don't know if it's
anytime you fall face first, especially as a heavyweight, right? It's kind of like it doesn't matter if you pop up or not. It's
He started to pop up, then it was caught off. I think that's the whole weird sort of thing.
Oh, you
about
think
that.
it was controversial?
Yeah, absolutely.
But he fell forward with his hands.
Yeah, but he got up. He started to get up.
Right. I get what
And
you mean.
then he wasn't, he was completely fine when he stood up. So I think I understand it's the ref's job to make sure they don't get, permanent brain damage, but at the same time, top 5 heavyweights.
Yeah,
do
true.
you let him keep going?
I think you could let it go a little bit further.
Yeah, maybe
right?
just one more coward punch to the back of the head might have been okay.
Why not?
Take a leaf from Herb Dean's book.
Why not? Pena obviously lost in quite dominant fashion. Wants a rematch. I think that seems pretty unlikely as Nunes was kind of dropping her at will, dominated her, and also dominated her in the grappling as well, which I think was something that she had an area that she wanted to make a statement in, which was because she obviously got subbed by Pena.
Yeah.
I think she showed she's better in both, clearly. I think a rematch doesn't really make sense when you lose every round of a 5-round fight, right?
No.
I think all roads lead to the Shevchenko rematch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is kind of crazy how close, Shevchenko, I think it was a split decision. I think they fought a couple of times, I believe, but Shevchenko being that much smaller and how much of a fight she gave Nunes, I think also given that Nunes did look very dominant, however, she's been a little bit inconsistent. Having said that, Shevchenko seems to have been a bit inconsistent lately as well. They both haven't been as dominant as previously. So
yeah,
actually, it's quite an interesting time for them to have this rematch. Who do you think has the advantage this time?
I don't know what weight would they fight at.
I think they fought at 135 last time.
Yeah, okay, so that means it would be Nunes' belt on the line as well.
Yes, but don't forget that she does struggle sometimes to make that weight, and also it would mean Shevchenko going up a weight class. I don't know. I mean, they're both obviously amazing fighters. It's a toss up between which one's the female GOAT. I think that Shevchenko might be a little bit better rounded, but she's a little bit smaller, so I don't know. It's tough to call.
Also, I read somewhere on, I think it might have been from MMAfighting.com or something like that, there's a chunk missing from Pena's head, and she's actually had to book in with a plastic surgeon to get that filled in.
Yeah, I think I saw a photo. It was it didn't look great.
Yeah,
she did get quite severely assaulted for 5 rounds. It was quite bad.
I'm surprised she wants a rematch actually.
Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't just get knocked out. Do you know what I mean? How do you good on her, but also, maybe just get knocked out at that point.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just go to sleep.
Just fake it, yeah.
Just pretend you're asleep. I'd just be like, I'm out. Or just tap, just tap. Should Derek Lewis retire and do stand-up comedy instead of fighting? Probably.
He says the funniest things, man.
He does, yeah. He does.
He
he could definitely have a career in stand-up comedy. I think he's funny enough. Or at least, he could definitely have a successful YouTube channel or even a podcast.
Could we put up a couple little links to other things where he says
Yeah,
just
definitely.
really funny shit? I just think that would just
Well, imagine a Derek Lewis podcast. I think he was on Rogan once. That was quite funny, but he could just interview people and talk shit.
Yeah.
It hurt pretty bad. I mean, it
was more of I'm just trying not to shit on myself, because I'm holding my gas in and trying to breathe at the same time. I just didn't want to shit in front of national TV. That's all that was.
It's almost at the point where he's enough of a personality as well that why risk going in there and getting face planted when you can just do a podcast?
Yeah, because he's been not too impressive lately.
That's it. Inconsistent, right? And it's like, how much more damage do you take?
Mind you, he beat Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, true. But also, it's like I guess it's like Rose losing to Carla Esparza, right? It turns out that if your opponent doesn't throw a single punch, you win the fight.
Yeah.
If you do. But yeah, I definitely think that he has the potential to do that. Magomed Ankalaev wants his title shot after his win against Anthony Smith.
Anthony Smith broke his ankle.
Broke his ankle. Yeah, good. Very good. Also,
he actually did break his ankle. That's fact.
I think it's a bit too early to say title shot. I think he needs one more. I think it's like he needs one more fight before we do that.
Yeah.
Look, he's super well rounded. He's like a light heavyweight version of Khabib or Makhachev at this point. I think we've seen he doesn't really have any weaknesses. Just a bit too early for me, to be honest. And the Smith fight wasn't, that's not decisive enough. Smith was compromised. Like, what is that?
It's a shame as well because Anthony Smith's like the nicest guy in MMA. He's just like really big fan of him.
He does look a bit like a pre-made avatar when you play when you play Skate and you get like the pre-made avatar that just has all the random tattoos and like it's like a pre-made kind of like person. That's Anthony Smith. He does. My point is, I don't think that a win against an injured Anthony Smith is enough to say to me, title shot just yet.
Yeah.
One more fight. Let's give him one more fight. Let's give him...
I agree.
Probably give... all roads always lead back to Yarn, but let's give him Yarn or someone like that.
Yeah, just someone in the top 3 to 5 would be...
Yeah, exactly.
Because then after that, you could say, yes, title contention.
Exactly. Oh, yes, this is one that I'm very excited for. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. And I think we talked about this last time. They've obviously accelerated Pereira's career massively in terms of the UFC because he is a man who holds a knockout win over the current middleweight champion, Adesanya. So he goes out and knocks out Sean Strickland in the first round, makes a statement.
That was a statement.
And Israel actually calls for the fight, goes on ESPN SportsCenter and announces the fight. He said himself, I don't shy away from a challenge. And everyone's saying, why would you go and call out a guy who's knocked you out before? I think Israel made a great point. He said, I want someone who's going to come at me and try and finish me.
Yeah.
And I think Israel fights better when someone's doing that, to be honest with you.
Definitely, yeah.
I think he fights... I wouldn't say badly because he still wins, right? But when someone tries to point fight him, it ends up just being a point fighting technical fight, right?
Yeah.
When someone comes at him like Costa does, or when someone comes at him like Whitaker did, it usually ends quite badly for them because he's such a elite, counter striker.
Yeah.
So I think that this fight actually, I think he's called it for a reason, and I think he also probably a bit of ego, probably wants to get that back after being knocked out by Pereira. It's quite a dangerous fight for him in a way, but it's also MMA. It's completely different. And Pereira's shown some holes when it comes to wrestling and grappling.
Adesanya made that point that he said, I got knocked out in kickboxing. This is mixed martial arts. It's a completely different sport, and I've been the king of this for a while. So,
having said that, he almost exclusively fights as a kickboxer in MMA, so it kind of isn't really like there's a potential for them to just have
but he seems to be
fight.
able to hold his own in clinch situations and things like that as well.
True.
I know he has been working on his the other aspects of MMA as well. So be interesting to see how that goes.
I wouldn't be surprised if he
goes for a takedown?
Goes for a takedown and, even...
Or like a clinch sweep or something?
Yeah, and Pereira is one of those rare Brazilians who I don't think he's much of a grappler, so... Yeah. Although he probably does have a black belt. I mean, they always do.
Exactly.
But yeah, look, who knows? But, having said that, Pereira's going to come try and take his head off. Maybe Israel wants to stand and strike. Maybe he wants to make a point. It'd be fantastic to see him get a knockout win back over Pereira. Having said that, I've got nothing against Pereira. I think he's a great fighter who's
exciting
interesting.
Fighter as well.
Exciting. it's just always hard when they can't speak English at all, because like,
Yeah.
how do you hype the fight, right? Like, I mean, obviously in Brazil it's easy to hype the fight, but in the West, in America, in the UK, and Australia, it's like we don't get the same intensity from the press conferences because you know, it's kind of like. So I just hope the fight lives up to the hype. I mean, you know, obviously they're not going to be able to have that verbal sparring session before the event. Whether or not we need that, I mean, you know, Israel's going to have to watch the repeat of him getting knocked out a fair few times before the fight. But
Probably, yeah.
you know, excited for that though. Next point we've got up there is Kane Velasquez.
Kane Velasquez.
Kane-
That was my writing, sorry.
I wouldn't mind knocking back another Kane Velasquez right now. When I finish work, something better than a nice Kane Velasquez of the pride of Queensland. So he's pled not guilty.
Kane Velasquez for Cerveza.
He's pled not guilty to attempted murder. Trial to continue at the end of September. The thing about this is, I'm obviously like, yeah, free Kane and everything, and I know that it's horrible that his daughter was molested at a daycare, which is like, you know, unthinkable. However, he did open fire on someone, and someone who he opened fire on the person who was accused of committing the crimes and the person's father. So there was the first issue.
Yeah.
First issue is there's someone in the car that is involved in it for a start.
Yeah.
Second issue is anytime you unload a gun and point it at someone, how do you say that you weren't trying to kill them? I think the defense is that he snapped. You know, it was the pressure of it all. And to be honest with you, I don't want to see someone like Kane, a legend, and someone who's had that happen to him, go to jail. But having said that, how do you say it's not attempted murder?
Yeah. Yeah,
Unfortunately, we can't just go and shoot people after they do stuff to us. However, it's America, so you never know.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him get off, but I think it's tough for me to, even as a Kane fan, it's tough for me to say it was an attempted murder.
Yeah.
He did try and shoot someone.
Former UFC champion Kane Velasquez has pleaded not guilty to attempted murder after more than 5 months behind bars. Velasquez appeared in court in San Jose this morning. The 40-year-old is accused of opening fire on Harry Goulart. Goulart is charged with molesting a young child related to Velasquez. Goulart's stepfather was struck and injured in that shooting. Goulart has been released on bail, but bail has been denied to Velasquez a number of times. The next hearing in this case is set for August 29th.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've never been put in a situation where that has happened and I have free access to a firearm.
Well, he also apparently ran their car off the road in his truck and then opened fire on them.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't say that you blame him for doing that in that position. However, at the same time, you need to take consequence for that. So it's kind of like he did that, but he's now got to take the consequences of that.
Because
right?
it's premeditated as well.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like, how do you... Anyway, so I guess we're going to have to see how that pans out. I hope for the best for him, but it's tough for me to say that he's going to... I feel like he's... How does he get off that, really?
Yeah.
Conor McGregor is in a new movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. It's a remake of Roadhouse, which was going to be made years ago with Ronda Rousey, actually, and then that didn't happen or something. I don't know what happened with that, but I'm, you know, Conor fan. I would say I'm a Conor fan. I'm more interested in seeing Conor fight again than seeing him in a movie. I'm kind of curious to see if he can act. That's you know, I'm curious in that sense. However, I'm not like excited. I'm not like, fuck yeah, I can't wait to see him in Roadhouse. Like, I'd rather see Nate Diaz in Conor 3 than see him in Roadhouse. So let's be real.
Yeah, I think another thing I've taken from this is that I spelt his first and his last name wrong.
Yeah, we get the point, but we get the point. But yeah, look, this just says to me that we're a step further away from seeing Conor McGregor back in the octagon, and he's probably heading in a direction that is going to lead him to not fighting again, I'd say. So I guess my main takeaway for this is I'm curious. I'm definitely not excited.
I'll definitely watch it though. You know, it's one of those things.
I'll watch
you
it for
have
sure.
to watch.
Oh, fuck yeah. Poirier versus Chandler has been set for UFC 281, and Poirier has opened as a betting favourite. First of all, great fight.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense, and it's something that the fans would want to see. I certainly want to see it. What's your initial take on this fight, and who do you think gets it done? I know it's a bit early to say, but what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I could probably give this one to Chandler.
I mean, it's after his last win, right, as well? Like, he's looked pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, Poirier's good. I just feel like he sometimes gets those fights You know what I mean by that? Like, he gets those fights where it's sort of like, yeah, he might win that. But, in saying that, he beat Max Holloway when Max went up.
Beat Connor when the pressure was on.
Yeah.
Twice. So... But I know what you mean. He certainly seems to get these incredibly tough fights.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think it's a really hard one, I reckon, to sort of put a... Because Chandler throws hard, man.
He throws hard. He's durable.
Yeah.
And he's unpredictable, as we've seen with his front kick to the face of Tony Ferguson, turning him into a frog.
Yeah.
Which is like the second instance of someone being turned into a frog we've seen in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Of course, Frankie Edgar was also turned into a frog, which was horrible to see. I mean, some of those photos, you just go... Even Marlon Vera said that he just didn't even want to post that photo because it was so fucked up.
Yeah.
It was,
yeah.
It looked like a CGI render of Homer Simpson in real life. Predictions. I think Chandler takes it. I think he's got the momentum on his side. I think he's dynamic. I think he's fast. I think Poirier likes those wars. He likes those gritty wars, and then Chandler plays well into that.
I reckon.
You can close that door if you want.
I reckon it could be like a round 1, round 2 KO.
Really?
From Chandler.
When's the last time you saw Poirier get finished? It must have been... Has he been finished?
Don't know.
Oh, we just get... Yeah, sorry. Our producer's just doing wanking signs.
Oh,
finished.
Finish, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a silver belt.
Yeah.
Silver
belt. I mean, it's... Look, at the end of the day, win or lose, it's a win for the fans, right?
That's so corny.
But it's true.
Yeah, it is.
It is
it's a fight I'd love to see. I'll be honest.
Unless it's one of those fights. Sometimes when you have fights like this that are so primed to be amazing, they just absolutely suck. Like Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis. They were literally like, this is going to be a murder, and they literally just didn't even throw a punch. So you never know. But I'm hoping it lives up to everything that it could be.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it for another episode of MMA Friends. Thank you for listening.
And yeah, more stuff coming out soon, guys. So thanks.
Thanks for listening, and stay pretty, San Diego.